Welcome to Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan, a podcast about the art and hobby of miniature painting. I'm Mike.
And I'm Dan. Thank you for joining us as we journey to become better, braver, and happier painters. So today's episode was supposed to be about social media, which we're still going to do, but we're going to change things a little bit. Originally, we were just going to talk about some of the history and how the arts are involved within these different platforms that we have in the social media realm nowadays, and how that's changed throughout the years and how that has brought our hobby more into the spotlight. But someone decided they wanted to be sick a couple weeks ago, and now the whole world's on lockdown. So today, we're going to change it just a little bit. We're still going to talk about social media, but we're going to talk about how it revolves around the world according to coronavirus. Mike and I are just giving this a try and winging it because we're still all in the not knowing what the crap is going on in the world kind of thing. So let's just talk about some of the platforms that we normally talk about and what we see on a daily basis. So for myself, there's Facebook, obviously. There's Instagram. I would say Twitter, but not really because who really
no Twitter.
Don't do Twitter.
No Twitter.
Pinterest. Sometimes I'll search through Pinterest, but I've done it for so long now that I'm starting to see stuff that I can find on Facebook that day, and it shows up a couple weeks later. So I really don't do Pinterest as much. And then there's Discord. A lot of us in the hobby world do subscribe or go on to Discord, and we can share pictures, ask for critiques, talk to the artist. If you're a gamer, talk about gaming. And that's been a really interesting and a good way to communicate, and a different way to communicate rather than the slowpoke Instagram and Facebook. But not as cool as doing face-to-face. So,
hey Dan, let me ask you a Discord question, because I've never used it.
Sure.
You can do video and audio on Discord as well. It's not just a forum, right?
Correct. There's forums, you can do private chats, and you can do videos and audios. So, Mike, real quick, before we start kicking off on how COVID-19 has changed our lives for the last week and a half. Oh, so today is March 20th, just so we have a timestamp there.
Exactly.
So, what kind of sites do you normally go to when you're looking on Facebook? Because there's millions of them out there. Most artists have them, but which ones do you kind of look at, and what kind of information you have about them?
All right, so I actually did some research this time, a little bit of pre-show prep. And so I looked at the main Facebook groups that I'm a part of. I'm actually, sadly, about 20 of them deep, but these are the kind of the bigger numbers. The biggest one that I'm a member of, and also you're a member of too, is called Heavy or Metal, and it's apostrophe E instead of, like the old Games Workshop thing. Mm-hmm. That just celebrated hitting over 25,000 members. They average 105 posts a day. My numbers on here are a little long because I just looked this up before I came in, and they are 5 years old. So that's pretty impressive. 25K members. That's an active one. And the interesting thing is every amazing artist that I've ever found on Instagram or followed anywhere, I've seen anywhere else, is in this group. So Banshee, Roman, Richard Gray, you name the artists, they're a part of this Facebook. And this is also, remember 5 years ago, GW pulled the stakes up on their social media. This was one of the original Facebook groups that came in after GW did that. So it's been around for that long. Mm-hmm. The other big one I'm a member of is called Miniature Painting Tips and Tricks, and that is hit 20,492 members, and they average 59 posts a day, that's pretty good too. That's another good one. And that is another very productive one. At Busts, great group. It's also great if you wanted to try out painting busts. 5,600 members with 23 posts. Hobby Hangouts has 7,100 members. They're about 3 years old. There's a lot of really good big sites out there. A lot of places to get interaction, post pictures, get critiques. That's kind of my mainstay is Facebook. I do some Instagram as well, but you mostly handle that for us. So yeah, most of the Instagram is you. I'm terrible at posting on Instagram on my own account. So, yeah, I really have the focus and the ability to only do one social media at a time.
Well, I guess if everybody has any problems with the Instagram post, I guess it's all on Dan.
Yep. Facebook is all on me.
Yeah.
So, you know, but also, I noticed interesting too when I was doing the research. Gaming sites are bigger. So, like, the ones that like Every Your Metal is actually, you will see some gaming questions here and there, but 99% of what traffic's on that is all about painting. And so it's really a dedicated painting site, which makes the 25K number even that much more impressive. Because when you look at some of the Games Workshop sites, you're talking 30 to 70,000. You're also talking Reaper is at 100,000 members, and so those are more like D&D and such like that. So I wanted to stick away from those and just kind of focus on the sites that are painting specific. And so, but what other are there any Facebook groups that I didn't mention that you were part of, Dan?
Well, I do a lot of 3D printing on the side, so I'm a part of quite a few 3D printing groups. Also, there's marketplaces where you can download the STLs. Those have about 15,000 members or so.
Yeah, that number is only going to get bigger and
Yeah,
bigger as it becomes accessible.
and it's really kind of cool because it's just like the 2 or 2D art, painting arts, where people actually do the art and they sell it. And I think that's kind of cool that there's a place where you can do it. So is people aren't really trading like a trade and swap website for like 40K or Infinity or something, or even Star Wars. But this is like, hey, I made this. If you like it, PayPal this to me and I will send the STLs. And I've done it a couple times and I've gotten some really, really cool stuff. And up on the horizon, there's some fabulous things that are coming out, and it's kind of changed my mind on some of the things that I wanted to do in the future. But that would be a future episode that we'll talk about.
Right.
So I think that I go through and I click so many of these things nowadays. I really can't even tell you the names of a lot of them, and most of the time we find that most of the same people are on them. If someone makes a post, it's on 4 or 5 different sites, which isn't a big deal because you never know who's going to be on which ones. But I also follow manufacturers, vendors, and the artists themselves, and that's where it's it's a little bit more personable. There's more direct questions that you can ask. There's a lot of marketing and branding on those sites, which is really cool too, especially if you're like, hey, I was thinking about painting this thing, and they might say, hey, you know what, look at my Instagram, look at my website, go to my Patreon, this is what we can show you, without it being overly pushy, and that's kind of cool. And also I've noticed recently are also alumni groups, high school, jobs, painting classes. Like, hey, if you're taking a class with us, you have like-minded folks that are in this group, and you kind of know who these people are, and they're a lot more forgiving, where you're not going to find trolls, because these are people that really want to be a part of these groups to learn more and to share their knowledge, which I think is fantastic.
Along with those, I noticed in like Roman LaPlatte's group and a couple other of those type of groups, people actually post free tutorials.
Mm-hmm.
Like that they spent the time, they painted something up, and they don't paint for a living, but they post hey, this is how I did this NMM, and here's like 6 pictures, and you're like, well, that was helpful. That's pretty awesome,
exactly. Because you never know when you're going to stumble upon an artist that's like that you like, and like, wait, that was pretty cool. That's something I wanted to try out. Oh, I like the way those colors work. How did they do that? And it's a sharing of information. So I think this would be a good place. Now we can talk about Instagram, which has different hashtags. You can follow your artists there also, but Facebook, I think, is the king on all that. Twitter, again, who cares? I don't really care a whole lot. Discord is kind of like the catch-all, but there are 3 other ones that we'll talk about in a couple minutes. We were going to continue talking about this and how this has impacted the arts. But one thing I learned in school many years ago is you don't look backwards, you look forwards. And Mike and I have had some conversations about like, how do we want to approach this since we've had this big change in life? So we're going to jump in with this change in life. I've been on lockdown for a couple days or so. As more and more people get sick from the coronavirus, it's less likely that I'm going out because my conditions and one of my children is recovering from bronchitis. And since this is a respiratory problem, I don't want him involved. I don't want him to be out there. It's some scary shit, people. This is the beginning of it. I hope we're at the end of it. I don't see that happening since schools are closing, works are closing, cities and towns, counties, states are being locked down. This is what I've been working for my whole entire life, watching thousands of zombie movies. And obviously, not a knock on politics because I don't like talking politics, but obviously Congress has not watched any of these because you know exactly what to do because all the writers in Hollywood taking care of it for us. But we'll find out in a couple months when all that takes care. So how is Facebook going to change? What kind of changes have we seen in the last week where people are having to stay home? Not just here in the States, but definitely Italy, Spain, Europe, England, even some places in Asia that are seriously impacted by this. And what have we seen start to propagate? You have any ideas there, Mike? Is there anything that you can shed on? I mean, I have a couple ideas, but
well, the first thing I noticed was Treverian hacky sacking with toilet paper. That was new.
Okay.
No, that was. I don't know if you saw that thing on his Instagram feed. Yeah, I would say the word proliferation is probably the best way I could describe what's going on as far as Facebook goes. It seems like more members, more groups are showing up, etc. You know, you're seeing a lot more people having time to spend on it. And so that's a good thing. It could be a bad thing. You know, social media is what you make of it. So if you use social media wisely, it's a wonderful thing. But there are people out there that do not. And so, you know, I have a feeling I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because every different type of community, whether it's a hobby community or a sporting community, is always a microcosm of society. But I have to say, in the hobby community, most of my experience has been way positive. And so I do have some negative experiences here and there, but those are rare as opposed to positive community vibes. So it'll be interesting to see if, because people have more time at home, if some negativity starts seeping out. I hope it does not, you know, but I'm hoping that the community vibe keeps rolling forward.
I think I believe the same thing. I think for the most part, most of us will move forward and keep a positive attitude. Looking at this from an American perspective, we don't like certain things happening and we don't like people telling us what to do. And if that means going outside and being zapped by lightning, it wouldn't matter, or alien invasion with a zombie apocalypse. People are still going to go out. I see them all the time because I'm one of those that likes to go out and see what everybody else is doing because I'm a people watcher. At what point does people's attitudes start to change and frustrations about not being able to go out or not having a job or not making the money that you need to survive? And how does that start to impact when someone says hashtag female space marine and everybody goes apeshit crazy about it and we have World War III on our hands? So I'm hoping that that we don't have any of these problems. I do foresee a couple just because that's human nature. But for the most part, like you said, most of the folks in our community are pretty good. They're not going to just go out there, and there's not a whole lot of trolls unless they just want to pick a fight. We have a lot more things to worry about, and I think the direction of humanity is definitely going to be hinged on what happens here in the next couple weeks. So that's why we're here. We're going to talk a little about this, get it off our chest, because I need to. I'm sure other people won't. We've heard the news stories. We've read the accounts more than we really want to. We've seen how the response is happening or not happening. Now let's just sit and wait and see what's going to happen, because we really have no control over this. What is this going to do for the art community? For me, I'm seeing, like you said, you see a lot more people posting. People, that have to stay home, especially some of our foreign friends over in Europe. dude, they're stuck. It's not a joke. So what are they going to do? Well, they paint for a little bit and they're like, hey, you know what? I got this cool thing going on. And hey, I got to hand it to the Spaniards and the French. They really know how to paint. So they're like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. So I'm going to go ahead and show a video. And that's just going to propagate. We're going to see lots of people showing these videos, lots of people sharing what they're doing because one, they're bored, and two, they're like, hey, you know what? I tried a new technique out. Let me show a picture of it. Let me see if I can get some critiques on it. That's pretty cool also. Hey, let's see if we can start a new group. So
hey, let's start a podcast.
Yeah, let's not start a podcast because
no, nobody should do a podcast.
No, podcasts are horrible, man. It's a time suck, and I'm here talking to Mike, looking at a white screen, and I'm not painting like I should be painting. So no, you don't want to do any podcast. Twitch is cool. Videos online, YouTube, those are cool. And you know what? We forgot to talk about YouTube. How could we not talk about social media and talk about YouTube and how that has totally impacted the art community? And we really want to talk about that. But how is YouTube, how is that going to play out in the next couple of weeks? We have people that are sitting at home. They're doing videos. There's going to be lots of different ways of painting purple and blue out there and lots of different ways of doing non-metallic metals. And I can't wait to see them all.
Right, exactly. Take advantage of it. Right, that's the number one thing I could think of is more people put out more and more videos. Hell yeah. You know, that's a great thing for miniature painters, and it boosts the Renaissance side of it. But the other side of it, though, is while we haven't specifically talked about YouTube here, we've pretty much talked about YouTube in almost every episode. Because we've talked to YouTubers. So, like Uncle Adam was a YouTuber. So, I mean, we've had some background in it. So I think that's kind of why my brain feels like kind of been there, done that. But you're absolutely right that YouTube is going to start exploding. And I know that, like, even ones that are pay, which we're going to talk about later, the pay stuff, even they're putting more free content out. And I'm sure that's to try to drive business to their pay sites, but you're seeing more and more free stuff come out. So
yeah. Cool. So what's the catalyst for all these extra videos popping up on YouTube and Facebook? Well, obviously that's going to be the coronavirus. That has impacted all kinds of things. So I like going to conventions, not just our hobby conventions, but I really enjoy going to comic conventions because I like comic book art. I like meeting B actors and actresses and sneaking pictures of them every once in a while, maybe even shaking a hand, which you can't do anymore. So in the last couple weeks, there's been a large push on canceling a lot of things almost into the summer. The biggest one that was impacted in our lives was Adepticon. That's a pretty... I don't even know how to explain what the meaning of that is. It's life-changing for some folks. It's a disappointment for other folks. The gamers are obviously like, oh, bummer. But we have vendors out there. We have artists that depend on big shows like Adepticon. So there's
like companies that are launching Kickstarters too. There was like 7 or 8 that was starting at Adepticon, which is huge. Sorry.
No, that's important to know because it's not just the art itself, but the folks that are producing the materials, producing the games that we enjoy to play, and what are they going to do? What do they need to do in order to survive? Because this is definitely, a part of that's their lifestyle. This is everything they've worked for an entire year, if not longer, for Adepticon 2020. One thing, and I'm going to throw this out there, and if we haven't, you probably have seen it, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway because I think it's important, is the Adepticant 2020. And that was, that's put together on Facebook for vendors that could use support. Because, hey, I'm always looking for some new paints. I'm always looking for new brushes. I like looking for figures. I like looking for game systems. They're all going to be in this place, a big virtual vendor hall. And we need to support them because without them, we don't really have this hobby. This could even go into the brick and mortar and online debate to a point that if we don't support them, they're not going to be there for us when we have the time and the money to support them. So I'm just gonna leave it at that one there. but the artists themselves.
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
a question though, real quick? Okay. So there's an Adepta Can't Facebook group that I was invited to, and I joined. I feel bad to a degree because I wasn't going to AdeptaCon, but I joined it. I got invited. I joined, and I know a bunch of people that are on it. That doesn't seem to be solely vendor. It kind of has it's kind of a mix of both. Is there a separate one that's vendors only?
There is a vendor hall, so the Adepta Can't 2020 vendor hall, and I have one.
Okay.
So there's that one, and then there's a regular Adepticon site. But the artist is what we were going to get into here in a moment about how.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure because I just wanted people to be clear if it's all one site and or one Facebook group, because I know that of the group that I joined was from Lynn Stahl, Metalhead Minis had created.
Yes, exactly, and she is the one who's responsible for that.
All right.
So the artist. I know we have the vendors section, but we also have the artist. And how are they supposed to get support? Because they have lots of classes that were being done and conducted at Adepticon and some other cons. So I've seen lately lots of things happening in our little universes with teaching and training. So I've noticed an influx in Patreon accounts being created, and also free access to certain sites, or even the $1 and $2 tiers opening up to say, hey, we know you're bored. We know that you want to learn some stuff. Here's some sites. Here's a bunch of lessons that you can take. It's only $1. And that does feed for later on down the road, but it gives people something to do when they're stuck at home, if they don't have jobs and it can telework. And it helps out the community. So we have that. And I've also seen a lot of Twitch. Now, I'm not, I don't partake in Twitch very much. I go on every once in a while, usually because they're live. It conflicts with my working schedule, so I normally don't do it. But I do try to go back and look at some of the clips and look at some old videos if they're out there. Most of those I can find on YouTube also. And something I talked to Mike about a long time ago, that I've seen a lot more opening up to also, which I'm actually, before I was kind of like negative about it, but now I'm kind of trying to, I see the importance of it, and actually I think I like it a little bit more now. And those are subscription sites or pay sites. Certain artists will open up a website and then you have to pay to download a video or the instructions or to watch videos, either on a website itself or certain other sites. I'm not very versed in it, so for me, this is brand new. This might be going on for years. I don't know. But I think it's kind of cool now, because if there's something really, really awesome, there's a great technique or something, and there's a 4-hour or 5-hour instruction video on it, and it costs $5. For me, $5, okay, I can do that. And it doesn't hurt very much. But if a whole bunch of people are doing those $5 ones, that can actually be a little bit better than Patreon, depending on how their structure is, their pay structure is. Because you might not want to go for an entire month and pay $15, which is fairly reasonable, unless you're doing like 10 or 15 different artists. I wish I had that much time.
Or that much money.
Yeah, or that much money. Whoops. That was me dropping my phone. Never mind.
That'll just stay.
Yeah. This is the second time. So I dropped my phone. I put my phone on my car the other day because I was doing something in the trunk, and then I decided to take off, and my phone took a 6-foot dive onto the cement, and I just got a little scratch because I was about to scream, and it was face down, and I was expecting to have a cracked screen and everything because I just replaced the screen like last month. So that really would have pissed me off because I dropped all that money to get my screen replaced from dropping it the first week I had my phone. So about the pay sites, I'm probably going to say this again, or I have already said it like 50 times over, that it's a pretty cool idea where you can find something that you really want a technique or a color or something along those lines, or even just a figure that you really like and you want to paint it, pay a couple dollars, you help out the artist, and you get some cool instruction out of it. Um, I think that's kind of cool. I think that's new for me. It might be out there for other people and might known about it. But these are two different ways that we're trying to compensate, because we can't go to classes. I was supposed to have a class with Banshee here in 2 weeks, but that got canceled because no one's allowed to come over from overseas. Mm-hmm. So that's having an impact on him. I don't get to learn what I need to learn or want to learn. So that's something that we're going to have to just adjust to in the future.
The Paysite thing is actually really interesting. I have seen it in the gaming world and somewhat in the painting world. I know Beast of Wars and Mini Wargaming. Those are the only two I can think of that are in the past. And I kind of get that Mini Wargaming had levels. And so it really, honestly, it's not much different than Patreon. It's just not going through the Patreon platform. But I feel like the Duncan Rhodes Academy is kind of a new model.
And I think that's
just play a fee and go for, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and that's kind of what I was thinking, because there's some other ones that are like, hey, you know what? I don't have a Patreon account. Here's a website. You PayPal me $5 or $10, and you get access to the video that you want. You own the video, you can download it. Or you do a monthly subscription, you can download all of them. So right. It's kind of like, it's kind of like renting from a library or renting from a video store compared to, I don't know, like the subscription thing where it's kind of, I think they're different models. They have different attractions, I guess. Right. One is already complete. One you're waiting, anticipating what's the next one's going to come up.
It'll be interesting to see if it somewhat evolves. If more people do that to unbind themselves from Patreon, go their own way, go their own site. But I notice a lot of the individual artists who do Patreons and stuff, in that level, they typically have like a one-on-one coaching level. And that's where usually that's a lot of money. And, some people still have them, but I know like artists like Ben Kelmitz, who's got a massive wait list. There's tons of artists that have wait lists as far as their one-on-one coaching. And so I don't know if that would translate to future sites, like, I don't know what the limitations of Patreon are. I know that businesses find frustration when they run Kickstarters because they lose a fee to Kickstarter, and Kickstarter takes time to get them the money. And so there's all that kind of, I don't know how that background operates in the world of Patreon and whether or not that would cause more and more people to shy away from it in the future. If the expense of everything keeps going up, we're all sitting here, people are looking for jobs, artists are having a hard time. Do people move more away from Patreon and follow that model because they won't lose the Patreon fee?
Yeah. So, there's a figure, like I said, there's a figure you really like and they paint it in 2 episodes and they're $5 each. That's $10. If it was on Patreon, how, is it in 1 month that you could probably get from $10 to $25, depending on the monthly fee there. Do you get the whole video, that whole thing in that month? Or does it carry over into the next month where part 1 is in January, part 2 is in February, and then you're double paying to get the same thing? And you're like, oh, the only reason why I was doing this is so I could get this one video. I'll translate that into 3D. So there's lots of Patreons there's lots of Patreon creators for 3D art, and there'll be like one like incredibly stellar figure or model that they make, and the other ones are just okay. You're like, I liked all these, but that one over there is what I really, really want. Do I do this for a whole entire month so I can get that one figure, or do I go to another venue? Now, 3D printers or 3D creators after a month or so, some of those pieces will be put out for a small charge, a couple bucks, $3, $10, something like that. But you get that one figure that you want, and you don't have to worry about all the other ones. So I kind of, they have different avenues, and I don't know if that's how the artist, if they're able to do it also. Like you said, it's like, I don't know the particulars about that. Do you have a website that you can go to and say, oh, I just wanted this set of videos. I just want to learn how to paint this demon prince. And that's it. Or do you have to go through and, wait for the series to be completed and then see it? But that's just not knowing, because I just throw money at Patreon. I don't look anything into it.
Here's I got to ask this question, because I know that this has stopped me from doing more Patreons. I feel like a lot of these I'm coming in way late. And so there are several artists out there that I absolutely adore their work. There's some specific one. There's a stippling guy and there's an NMM guy. I looked through, before I signed up, I tried to follow back to where the beginning of their Patreons are. And literally for both of them, it's like 30 minutes into it, I'm still scrolling, and I'm like, where's the starting point? And so I kind of get, I don't know, they have their own techniques, and I guess you could pick those up in other videos and such like that, but I've always been hesitant to go in and join a Patreon of somebody that's well established, and then I feel like I'm lost already before I even started. I'm sure that's psychological, but I mean, there's so much content already. And I'm like, and new content keeps coming out. You feel like you're falling behind. It's like, oh my God, I went to school. But I don't know. That's kind of stopped me from looking at, from subscribing to Patreons. It's just, I feel like I'm already behind the 8 ball and trying to find where their starting point is. So, and some artists are good about talking about that. Like I've emailed a few of them and said, hey, I looked through your Patreon. I'm a little confused of where would be my starting point. You know what I mean? Like, what would I want to start with? And
well, some of them.
Good. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say some have good answers, some don't know how to answer the question, and that's just human nature. So, it doesn't make them good or bad. It's just sometimes, and also they may not fully understand what I mean because of English is not their first language, and that's not their fault either. So,
I've noticed that some of them will have a directory that they post that has like a list of all the videos that they have and then a link to those videos. And that has been super helpful because you don't have to scroll for 20 minutes waiting for it to refresh to find out where the video number 1 is. When this one has a list of, painting black hair, number 1, number 2, painting red hair, number 1 and number 2. So you can go down and say, oh, here's the first video I need to take or to use, and then here's the second video. And even if it's in other months and stuff, chronologically it might be hard to find, but having the links in an index definitely make it help. So here's one of the pitfalls though I see about all this as a painter, is that we see all these videos, we watch all these videos, and that's all we do, and we forget about the doing part. So you have to make sure that you're taking time to actually practice what you're looking at and focus. Like you were saying, sometimes you get lost in there and there's so much stuff to look at. Like today I want to do yellow. Okay, here's 2 or 3 videos. Here's a couple recipes. Let me go practice it and see which ones I actually like. Because I know that when I paint something, it's 1,000 times different than what the pros are doing. Mine looks like crap. Theirs looks awesome. I don't know how they made the pink turn into orange and all that scientific artsy stuff. And it makes my head hurt to think about it. But they make it work. I cannot make it work. It has to do probably with a lot of practice. And so that's one thing I think is really important is you look for a little bit, find something that you want to practice, and then go from there and start painting. Because if not, 2 weeks are going to be gone if that's how long you have, like some of us kind of sort of have. You have a little bit of time to watch the videos. You don't want to spend the whole time that you have off staring at the videos, because at the end of the day, when you have to go back to work again or go back to school, what did you complete? If you didn't accomplish anything, all you did was watch videos, and you might as well just watch crappy Star Wars movies or crappy Star Trek movies. Just to make sure I pissed off the majority of the sci-fi fans out there.
People are going to try to totally revoke your nerd card. Like, no nerd card for you, hating on Star Trek, Star Wars, and Star Trek.
First, look, the first two Star Treks, awesome. Okay, maybe not the first one. The first three, the first real 3 Star Wars. Come on now, that's golden. All the other ones are just crap.
No. Have you ventured into The Mandalorian yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Because I'm busy watching Patreon videos and being on YouTube and learning how to paint properly. I don't have time for that stuff. I watch zombie movies and... Oh, so here's another thing. Netflix, I don't know why in the last 2 weeks, I probably do know why, that they have uploaded like every type of contagion virus movie that has ever been made. Look, we live it right now. I don't need to watch a freaking movie. They're like, hey, you know what? They should have tents like that. Why doesn't it take us 5 minutes to figure out a cure for this virus? Because Hollywood's taking care of it and not the government. They're two different things. But that we're living it right now. We don't need to watch it. That's all I'm saying. That's my
although I can always, that's all right. I can always go for some Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland. I just watched Zombieland again the other night while I was painting. Gotta love those movies. Especially, those are 2 of my favorite movies. Especially in the zombie genre. But how have you personally, Dan, how have you been handling? I know you were stressed out because your son had bronchitis, but like, what are you doing personally to keep yourself from licking? What is it? Was it on John Oliver's show? The extreme of you got to find somewhere between gargling bleach and licking subway rails. Subway handles.
I'm actually just following the rules. I wash my hands. I try not to touch things when I go out. We went shopping. My wife and I went shopping last weekend and purchased a lot of stuff when things first started kicking off. Because that was before. So my daughter was supposed to go to Europe. They got snipped pretty quick, and that was a night that the president talked, and we're like, holy crap. So we made sure we got up early and we went and we grabbed everything that we needed to grab for at least a week or two. And every once in a while we run out of something like ice cream or something that the kids are like, I really need some chocolate right now because things are just getting stressful. So we, going out and getting that. But hey, I have noticed what people actually eat. So they eat ice cream, they eat potato chips, they eat soup, and they eat pasta, because that's all wiped out. And they must eat lots of toilet paper and paper products.
Right, I was going to say.
Too.
Well, they they wash it down with hand sanitizer and hand soap.
They must. So that was my shopping experience. But where we're at, it hasn't been too bad. It kind of sucks when I'm trying to find ground beef and I can't. Mm-hmm. But hey, when I go to the local hobby shop, and actually bringing that up, I've gone to 3 places in the last couple days, and they've been fairly busy. So we have our 2 local hobby shops, Game Garrison and Your Hobby Place, and Hobby Town USA, and they're all probably within a mile or 2 with each other, which makes it fantastic for us hobbyists. And
I am so jealous of where you live. There is nothing. It's nothing up here that's even close. There is a Games Workshop, which is great, but that's limited. So I have to drive 30 minutes.
Yeah, the Games Workshop's on the other side of town. But we have one of those too, and a Hobby Lobby. So we have all these things. And they've been fairly busy, which I think is pretty cool. But not cool as in we still have our same hygiene issues. We still have we still have the same hygiene issues. And that's kind of concerns me a little bit. But it was pretty cool to see that places were busy, and they're all offering like curbside pickup, drop off delivery, stuff like that, which we're going to see happen everywhere. It is amazing, like how things are going to change, or to think about how things are going to change in the next couple years, because we're going to find out certain things work and certain things don't work, what people are capable of doing when they're not at work all the time, what people are capable of doing
Right.
when they can't be at a certain place, people taking care of their own kids for the first time. I think those are fabulous stories, and I get to laugh at those. Me enjoying the extroverts, me enjoying extroverts, having a hard time dealing with my serenity because it doesn't bother me to sit in the house for 4 weeks straight and just do my own thing and not have to talk to anybody. That doesn't bother me one bit. But I know that there's quite a few people that are having a very, very hard time with that because they need that energy. That's where they get it. So yeah, we've been pretty cool. We're pretty laid back. The kids are playing their games. They're doing some hobby stuff. We're teaching them real world things. We'd have discussions. Hey, you know what? Another thing is going to be family dinners coming back. I think that's pretty cool. We always do it at our house, but I think that's going to start happening more and more often because you can't go out, so you might as well sit and eat together.
Yeah, but that's actually been a mandatory thing in my house. Well, we do 6 days a week. All right, but before all this other stuff went on, it was 6 days a week we had dinner together. And so we made sure all activities and stuff were scheduled, around when we could all eat together. Just it's such an important thing. Not to be preachy or anything, but yeah, I'm right there.
No, I mean, we all have, different ways of doing things, and there's not, what's good for one person may not be the best for somebody else, but it's just interesting to see how back to basics, materialism, things like this are going to change. And I look forward to 5 or 10 years down the road to see what positive impacts we have out of this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually, the biggest thing I'm upset about is I am in desperate need of IPA for my airbrush. I was taught that 2 weeks ago when I dropped my son off at work, he works right next to a Walgreens. I went, oh, maybe I'll run in and get some isopropyl now. Like, nah, I don't need it right this second. And now I'm like, oh my God, I can't find rubbing alcohol. And even online, people have started jacking up the price. I saw a 91% bottle somebody was selling $35, and I went, yeah, I can wait. I can thin and clean with other things. I'm not that desperate, So maybe I'll just run some old vodka through, maybe that'll just work. Thin your paint with booze. Right, it's stuff you can drink in it, right? Yeah.
Well, IPA is the stuff that we use to clean off our figures or our prints when we do resin stuff. So I have quite a few bottles laying around. Some of them though are contaminated because I filter my alcohol. I filter my IPA so I can use it later on. So
it sounds like you're running a distillery. You gotta move, like, what is this mash? You got the
kind of
distillery going on.
Nah, I use a coffee filter and a paint filter, and I just pour it in, let it drip through, take all the resin out, and let it sit outside and dry, and then I'll toss it. So I'll have leftover IPA that I use just for cleaning. It's not good stuff. I have one bottle of good clean that I've been using for my airbrushing. The other ones have been used at least once or twice, but I still have it. So if I need to take a shower in it for some reason, I probably can.
Right. Yeah. A little bit goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
Well, especially if you're using like 91 or 99%. That'll just take everything off.
Yeah, I had to strip some models the other day, and the stuff I was using wasn't working. And I was like, you know what? I haven't tried stripping any of my models in alcohol in a while. It's like, let me just give it a try. So I put them in there with, I had 91% alcohol. I put them in my ultrasound. Holy crap. Ultrasonic cleaner. It was freaking awesome. They did a really good job. I was like, oh, okay. So that 40% alcohol doesn't work very well. 91 and 99%, that stuff will eat the crap out of that paint, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I figured out a trick with my Sotar is that if I pull out the needle, and just put, alcohol in the cup and put it at an angle, it'll actually, and I just let it sit for a little while, it'll actually clean out the tip, because that tip is so small in the Sotar that I'm like, okay, well that works. I let it, when I'm done using it, I use a little bit of alcohol in the cup, let it sit, and my airbrushing issues with the Sotar have gone away. Yeah.
That's yeah. I have 5 airbrushes. That's the only one right now that seems to be doing anything remotely considered airbrushing. I dropped one of my 105s today and bent the shit out of it, so that one's dead.
Oh,
So
that's rough.
it's dead. So I have to that won't be disassembled and being used for other parts. And so my Renegade is just painting like shit right now. So the only one that's really painting decent is my 2020, which and now I'm starting to think I might need to get something else because it's definitely not producing the way that I want it to produce. And I've had to clean these things like a lot lately. I don't know what's going on because I've been doing a lot of airbrushing lately, like a lot of it. I'm sure my lungs are coated in acrylic paint right now, so I won't be able to get the virus, and that's cool.
Well, maybe also throw in the resin from the printing. There you go. You'll be well preserved.
I probably will. My wife says she smells it all the time. I don't smell it at all. I guess my olfactory is all broken down now from all the chemicals in that resin and everything. But
right, and I'm venturing into the world of Gundam, man. So we're talking lacquer paints, a whole new world that I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do because the smells just send me over the roof. You know what I mean?
oh, you don't have to. You know, so Vallejo has those awesome freaking mecha colors. Those are awesome. Those are really good, and they're meant for Gundam models. You should look at those. They're already thinned for airbrushing. They're super thin.
Okay,
I like them. They have a nice assortment. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I like those. Hobbytown has them.
Are they satiny?
I think they are satin. I think they are satin. Yeah.
Because just in general, I'd like to add some satin paints. I'd like to add a nice satin black and a couple of their satin colors. Like, cause I feel like I know people that put gloss in the shadows to get a little bit of extra kind of realistic effect. But I think for me, that comes out too much, and a little bit of satin in the shadows and darker colors, I think, might just be these needs.
No, I want my shit to be flat.
You need that black 3.0 then. Put that in the shadows.
You know, someone did a test. I saw someone do a test with one of those, and I was like, yeah, you know what? It's just not my thing. It doesn't need to be like that. I just want it to be flat black.
But I know, and I'll be honest. I have black 2.0, and it's good. It is that flat, but I'm going to tell you that scale 75 flat black is only a notch or two behind it. I mean, I wish I could find this. I went through and I did like a color sheet of, Dan, I can't justify this in any way, but I have about 20 different blacks from 10 different manufacturers. And so I went through and kind of did a color test thing where I painted it out, each one, wrote down what it was, and I did 3 layers of glazing and all of them. And the 2 flattest ones were, of course, the black 2.0 was the flattest. But scale 75 flat black was right on its heels. And Vallejo flat black wasn't a model color. The model color one, not the game color, was not that. It was still, there was a gap between that and the scale 75, but it wasn't that far. You know, so I don't know if something like a black 2.0 is worth the dollar back. You know, because it's like a little tiny bottle and it's like $13 to $18. And it's, wow, you know, and it's fragile. And so it rubs off really easily. So, but it is nice. It actually really, like when I just did a Martian landscape, like a moon landscape piece, the black 2.0 in all on all the shadows, I gotta say that it definitely did increase the void of space feel to these. So there is some purpose to it, you know what I mean? It's gotta find, just like everything else, every tool has its job, every paint has its purpose, right?
Yep.
So we've been going at this a while, man. So what's kind of on your desk?
So I'm trying to get back into my Sisters of Battle. Started looking around, and I have a complete set of one of my squads, but I've seemed to have lost quite a few. I think I sent you a text, so I have no idea where they are. I have so many boxes of crap that I'm like, whatever, I don't know what to do. So that was kind of like, well, I'm going to go find something else. So I had a Titan on my table for the last 2 years. So I'm started painting some of the flames on it and testing out different formulas for that. And started playing around with just different colors. So I just wanted to experiment with colors. So I've really just been going back to the very beginning of painting and just trying to remember, like, how did I find these colors out? How do I glaze properly? How do I put layers on? And just really just watching movies and painting, just trying to get back into it a little bit more hardcore than I used to. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. I've learned a lot, or relearned a lot of stuff. So now I'm just plugging along. I wish I could complete something, which I try to do before this weekend is over. We'll see where that goes. And then we'll see what next week brings, because I might have some free time. Doing a couple prints on the 3D printer. Been spending a lot of time on the airbrush, hours on the airbrush, just trying to refamiliarize myself with it and to try things and push things and break my airbrushes and try to fix them and crap like that. So that is what I have been doing when I'm not scrubbing things down with bleach and alcohol and run away from people that knock on my door. Which is really funny, because you're like, hey, you shouldn't be really knocking on my door and trying to get into my house, because I might cough on you. You never know. It's just kind of weird. It's a weird world out there, man. It really is. So what about you, Mike? What are you working on?
Oh, before that, it's really funny. We had a solicitor come to the door a couple of days ago, and I was kind of leaning in. Besides, I have very large dogs to begin with, so I kind of don't open the screen door anyways. And so, of course, the guy takes a couple steps back when he sees the dogs, but when I kind of open like, hey, what can I do for you? And he goes, oh, hey, and he like reaches his hand out to shake my hand, and I'm like, okay, no, not having it. I don't even want to hear what you have to say at this point. That's a big faux pas. Your sales technique. Hit it again, try again. So yeah, I was just kind of like, you're really gonna try to shake somebody's hand. All right, my desk is solely focused on one thing, and that is prepping everything that I want to try to accomplish for the year. Because I find that if I prep stuff and get it ready to the point where I get it to the next point of painting, I find that I will actually paint it. If I leave something undone, or if I only kind of, I'll work on this model a little bit, then this one, I get distracted easily. So my goal right now is, excuse me, and the way I paint, I'm using the capital palette as kind of my deadline. So I want to try to increase the number of entries I have. Like I want to add an entry to every category. So I'm working on a group of Stormcast Paladin Protectors, which are by far my favorite Games Workshop model. So, the Leah bus from Ouroboros Miniatures, which is great. It's their Everyday Women line. I have a 75 millimeter Honorable Geisha from That's Planet, which I actually was not going to do, but I have to throw out some props to Michael Proctor, excuse me. Let me do that again. I have an Honorable Geisha from That's Planet. I wasn't originally going to do it because I couldn't figure out a base for it, but I have to throw out some props to Michael Proctor. Some of the stuff that he's posted recently on his Clever Crow Studio actually gave me an idea and inspired me. So please, people look at other people's artwork, get inspired for sure. I have a Leviathan Crusader from Dreamforge Games, a Slaughter Priest from Games Workshop. I have that Gundam that's staring me down, and I am going to do a thoroughly inappropriate diorama using Reaper Plague Doctors. That's kind of where I am. I've got a lot of it prepped. I've sculpted a certain type of virus for the diorama, and yeah. So that's it's pretty simple. I'm getting everything to the point of Zenithal primed, ready to go.
Cool. You're gonna put the Gundam in? You're putting a Gundam in the capital palette?
No, that
okay.
right after. No,
you could.
So, no, I could, and I actually think it's a pretty cool idea from what I'm doing. But I'm gonna do like a kind of leaping and an ice base with all these like shells exploding in and ice coming up. So a little bit different. Definitely go art side of it. Something that we didn't see anything really like that when we judged. But the National Capital Model Soldier Society show is a few weeks after the Capital Palette, and that's kind of, I want to be done with it before the Capital Palette. They have a specific Gundam category. They have multiple Gundam categories. So
okay.
That's cool. I'm more interested in putting it at that. The Leviathan Crusader from Dreamforge is my miniature for the vehicle section. Now I just have to figure out whether or not the 75 millimeter figure is going to go in figures or monstrous creatures. Because if it's just going to go in figures, I probably won't do the Games Workshop Slaughter.
If it's a 75, if it's 75 millimeter, it's going to be a monstrous creature.
Okay, so right, so my goal is to have something in every category. And I'm moving right along, actually, pretty quickly. I am enjoying this more than I've ever enjoyed. I still cuss my brains out with mold lines and seam lines, but it kind of is like I have a goal. I want to actually be prepped with everything by the end of March. And then come April 1, start slapping paint down. Because even though I'm not painting per se, I'm doing the part of the painting process. And so people out there who are listening who are stuck necessarily, like maybe they're in a rut, prep some models, draw some bases. That's actually one of the things that helped me the other day was drawing out the base for the 75 millimeter one. And I'm going to give you a joke with a total dad pun. So I was struggling with the size block of wood that I have that to use potentially for a base, and I couldn't think of what else to put it on. And I did not like the Anabugesha comes with the base, and I just really didn't like the way that looked. There's a couple of scenery pieces that are on it I can take off and use. But I was like only limiting myself to the size of the square. And so I was like, well, I can't just keep getting a bigger square, right? Because it would be on like, it would basically be on like a cutting board. But, so I'm like, I have to think outside the block. Outside, like it can go a little bit over here and there and build upwards. And, I don't know, sometimes I get stupidly stuck on things like, like, it's a gaming base, so I have to stay within the circle or the square or hex of the base. And, it was kind of refreshing to be like, oh, what the hell am I worried about? Who cares? Nobody's going to complain about trying to, like, go to base combat with this because it's a display piece, dummy. And I don't even game, and I still think about those type of things, which is kind of crazy. But I'm really excited for this episode because we also have an interview with Dave Taylor, one of the admins from one of the largest painting groups we mentioned before. Every Year Metal has 25,000 plus members, and he has been there since the start. And so that's going to be a great interview to have a conversation about how kind of social media has changed over time and such. It's a little dated, though. I will warn you, it is before this whole COVID-19 craziness started. And so speaking of social media, anybody out there have a Facebook group that you want us to talk about? We don't mind throwing out plugs for free groups at all. Hit us up at listeningtopaintdry@gmail.com or give us a comment on Instagram or Facebook, also Listening to Paint Dry. We'll talk about your Facebook group online. That's absolutely our pleasure to do it.
Dave Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. I'm curious how you got started and how long you've kind of been involved with miniature painting and gaming and such.
I started, I think, in about 1986, 1987. I'd been, those Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone Choose Your Own Adventure books. I don't know if you remember those. That's
Yes.
how I kind of first got into the gaming side of things, and then MERP and Dungeons and Dragons, and then, inevitably someone came into school with some lead miniatures and kind of went from there, and I started painting them and, kind of carried on. I took a bit of a hiatus from painting when I started at university. I think that happens to a lot of people. I think, they discover girls and beer and, and they stop for a while and then get back into it. A lot of my friends got back into the hobby after getting married, and their children getting into the hobby. So, it kind of followed that path, so. But yeah, it was through role playing and so on mainly.
So did you ever play? I always want to ask this, but I don't know what kind of, you're in England, I'm in the U.S. Did Steve Jackson's Car Wars ever make it out y'all's way? It was this paper board game kind of thing where you kind of built up like Road Warrior type cars and.
Not so much. I mean, I knew of it.
Okay.
But never really saw anyone playing it, or I didn't play it myself. And then Games Workshop came up with Dark Future, which was which was probably a shameless rip-off of Car Wars, like a couple of things. And and I had that, and we played that. That was good fun. But no, I never really saw Car Wars.
No, so I have to ask too, what made you kind of want to do what's the best way for me to say this? The thankless job of being an admin on one of the largest Facebook groups out there for miniature painting.
It was sheer ignorance of what was involved. I joined Heavier Metal on the first day it went live, which was the day that Games Workshop shut down their original Heavy Metal Facebook group. And I think the group then had about 4,000 or 5,000 members, and just suddenly someone popped up one day, said, "We're shutting this down." I think it was when Games Workshop were kind of really reorganizing their social media. They, I think they got rid of Heavy Metal from the magazine and everything else at that time as well. So a chap called Kieran Clark set up Heavier Metal, and there are a few others that sprang up at the same time. And he ran that on his own for a good few months. And one day he popped up out of the blue asking me, would I help out being an admin? And I had no idea what's involved at the time. It was really kind of stopping people from swearing and removing posts that were about gaming or put people trying to sell Ray-Bans and things. So I just said, why not? It was good fun. And for a while, there were just three of us, Kira, Matthew, and I. And then we invited some more admins on a few months after that because the membership just kept snowballing. So I didn't really have any idea of what was involved. So, but I kind of stuck at it. It was good fun. We started organising some competitions and things, and it was, I still quite enjoy it.
Right. Well, I mean, you're up over 24,000 members now, which is kind of impressive, and something ridiculous like 115 posts a day. It's kind of insane.
I know, it's kind of mental. Yeah, it's really crazy.
But no, it's impressive. It's one of the most welcoming communities I've been a part of too with painting. So y'all are doing a great job.
Thank you. We try and foster that.
What is the biggest challenge with this that you're facing as an admin or a moderator?
I think generally it's about trying to maintain standards, which Kieran, when he set the group up, said we're not going to have any swearing, which does put us at odds with quite a few people over the years. and sort of strictly, no gaming, no advertising. That sort of upsets a few people as well. And trying to keep a lid on any kind of trolling that goes on, and sort of negative or unnecessarily negative comments. Because if someone says, "Give me some criticism," there's going to be someone who's going to say, "Oh, I don't think this is very good."
Right.
But it's there's ways and means of presenting criticism that's in a supportive way. So that's because that's the challenge, I think, because it's relentless. It's every day. You have to stay on top of things. And I mean, the Facebook mechanisms that for admins have got so much better over the years. So things like keyword alerts, we know instantly if someone's dropped an F word. Whereas before you'd have to actually see it in a thread, or someone would report it, or they wouldn't report it to us, they'd report it to Facebook, and then we get grief from them. So it's a lot easier now. It's a lot easier for people to kind of flag things up to us, or they get flagged up automatically. And things like vetting members, we get very little spamming. But when you can spot them when they try and get applied to the group. We can spot them quite easily these days. So it's things like that, because it's just all the time. It's every day.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine it's got to be a barrage of stuff, and now with all the different robots and stuff out there that are trying, they get more and more sophisticated. It seems every day, as well.
Yeah.
So I'm impressed that y'all can keep up with it, and I personally, as a father of 3, I'm glad there's no swearing and people watch kind of how they behave. It's a nice.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people say to us, well, there's supposed to be a minimum age for Facebook, but and that is true. But we try and encourage sort of younger members to join in, and especially with things like the competitions. And yeah, when my children look over my shoulder when I'm online, I don't want them seeing a whole cluster of swear. And it's not pleasant. You can hear it and you say it. I mean, in amongst the admins and the mods, we have our own thread, and sometimes we're like, oh god damn it, But you actually have to type that. You don't just slip out your mouth. You've actually got to type that in, and there's not really good reason for that. I don't like seeing it on other groups, but that's up to them.
Right. No, exactly. Well, just also it creates when you go into those words, it can create vitriol very fast. And so, instead of it looking like a compliment or something, it can be very misread quickly the other way and start a fight.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky. We have very little abusive posting, thankfully, and comments. A lot of the swearing is things like, F man, that's amazing, or that's effing amazing. It's just
right.
But we just kind of we have to get rid of that.
Right.
There's very little of anything abusive, thankfully. The membership are pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, one of the things I was going to ask too is, since you've been an admin now almost since the dawn of the site, because site's about 5 years old now, and
6 years in 2014 it started.
2014. So it's coming up on its 6th birthday. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, crikey.
So besides just the admin tools would have changed, what else has kind of have you noticed any changes that have happened in social media?
I'm not sure in social media per se. I mean, there's a lot more social media platforms now, but I think online usage has increased. Things like Patreon has really exploded.
Right.
And so one of the things we have to deal with is people wanting to promote their Patreon through Heavier Metal, and because we have the advertising ban, we say, well, no, you can't. But we found a way around that, and there are a couple who do regularly post up content and put a link to their Patreon through that, and we kind of, that's fine. We're okay with that. What we don't want is people just like spamming, join my Patreon, buy my magazine, do this, because it just gets boring,
Right. And that's we've been debating that about the podcast too, because we want to announce it. It's always going to be free, but I don't want to overstep. I've gotten actually kicked out of a couple of groups because I posted about it, but so it's kind of a tough balance because you want to support artists, but
exactly.
you also don't want to bog them down.
Yeah, and we want to support small businesses and small manufacturers as well. But if we say advertise, then the floodgates will open. That's what we're concerned about.
Right.
We have considered, like if the second Thursday of every month or something is a free for all, but we've never really kind of made that work. So, but in terms of whether it's changed, I mean, if Facebook have made it a lot easier for us in terms of the admin tools, and I don't know, people say to me that Facebook is a dying platform. I don't see it. Because our daily membership requests are quite extraordinary, and the membership is still going up and up. Maybe younger audiences aren't using Facebook perhaps as much, but if our membership, if the number of posts per day was declining, if our membership was declining, then maybe I'd agree. But I don't think Facebook is a dying platform. There is talk about maybe expanding into Instagram and other areas. But I think I think the online presence of miniature gaming has expanded, and that impacts on social media. People are communicating via social media a lot more. There's a lot more online competitions that we see.
Right.
So I think that's where the changes are, I think.
Have you noticed an increase in the quality of the painting that's coming out?
Oh God, yes. God, I don't know about you. Because I was painting in my bedroom when I was 14, and I thought, and I was kind of like the best painter in my circle of friends, and you, unless you really travelled to a show like Golden Demon, you wouldn't, your only exposure to miniature painting would be in a magazine, like White Dwarf. So you'd be in this bubble, of what you think is good. And when I stopped painting, I started again. I thought, yeah, I'm still pretty good. And then you look around, you think, oh my God, what the heck is going on? How are people doing this? Just it beggars belief. So I think the hobby has moved on tremendously. In terms of the quality and the skills and the styles that are coming out. There's a lot of development there. So it's constantly moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I find heavier metal's a bit of a rabbit hole. If I start looking, I start staring at pictures for hours, and I'm like, wait, I gotta paint. I gotta do the podcast.
It can be like that, and I think that can be intimidating for newer painters as well. We hear that, oh, I'm new to this, go easy on me because I'm only just starting or something like that. I'm not as good as you, but here's my effort. You can't stop people being apprehensive about posting like that because maybe they feel intimidated by some of these guys who are really, really good. But if someone wants to get some advice or get some criticism, then they should be able to post it and know they're not going to get hit by a barrage of abuse, like, hey man, you're crap, or this is rubbish, no, give up.
Right. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that once on Heavier Metal, which is amazing because there is a lot of posts. I think I saw averages well over 120 posts a day, and that your membership stuff was something like almost 150 a week on average.
It's mad. It really is.
Like, holy cow, it's a good time to be into miniature painting for sure.
Well, the thing that I think that the thing that the online groups like Heavy Metal and other painting groups is good is because where I live there's a pretty strong hobby community. You don't have to go very far to find other people who are painting, people who are gaming, people. But a lot of our members are quite isolated, and they don't get the chance to see other people's work. They don't get a chance to enter competitions because of their geographical location. So I think there's a real place for groups like ours, for people who are otherwise, quite isolated like that. And then something that crops up quite frequently is people are suffering from depression, and a lot of people use the painting as a mechanism for coping with their mental health. So maybe they don't go out because they're sort of nervous or apprehensive or concerned about that, but they find an outlet for their creativity online. And I think that's really encouraging for us to see that. I saw it, I didn't give it a thought, and one day someone put up a post. I was in the military and I was injured and I suffered from PTSD, and I find the painting gives me something to focus on. And I was like, oh wow, that's amazing. And there were just hundreds of comments from people, perhaps not from the military, but from other areas who had suffered with depression. Someone would say, yeah, I do the same thing. And I was really amazed. I'd not considered that before, and I was quite shocked at how many people were using it as a coping strategy. It's quite heartening that we're able to provide a platform for people to share their experiences like that.
And it seems everybody's journey is different, but almost the experience of painting seems to be the same. That kind of a lot of us go through all the same things, and it's groups like Heavier Metal that allow us to connect and talk about those things. While somebody may be a war veteran, someone might have been through a massive car accident that caused them PTSD or something along those lines. And so, I've always been really impressed and loved those are my favorite threads too. That how people cope with their different experiences and such, and I love reading those. So, now, are there any posts that kind of drive you guys crazy? I mean, are y'all sick of seeing I spilled my nun oil posts?
You do get those, and it's I feel your pain, but we've seen 5 of those this week. Maybe you should be, I'll go, God, those guys are so clumsy, and then I do it myself, and you think, oh crap, I think the ones that I can't speak for the others, but I think the ones that kind of that irk me a little bit are, hey, I just bought these brushes. And it's like, okay, or I just went out and got this, and it's a box or some sprues, and you think, I'm sure you're really excited, and we're all excited by those things, but can you show us when it's painted?
Or at least give us a work in progress, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, those kinds of, and you see the similar sort of things doing the rounds as well. But I think we acknowledge that people get excited about that kind of thing. I think at Christmas we've said, right, this is your Christmas present thread. Show us your sprues. Show us your box of brushes. Get it out your system, and then we can get on with the get slapping some paint around.
No, I love that. I love the Christmas one actually too, because I like seeing what everybody else got, and a lot of times it gets me. I'm like, ooh, where's that model from? Like it's almost like a pre-shopping network,
Yeah, and that's what's also great, because you can see, it's opened my eyes to a lot of manufacturers and a lot of producers of models that you wouldn't otherwise see. The big companies dominate. But it's really nice when someone from a really small company pops up, says, "Hey, I've got," wow, where did you get that from? Well, how can I find this? And although we have a no advertising policy, if you want to promote something you've done, your company, paint it and post it, because people want to see it.
Right. That's actually kind of the way around it.
Yeah, every photo of a painted Space Marine is an advert for Games Workshop.
Yes.
So if you're from a smaller company and you want to promote your new model, paint it here. As long as it's your work, you've painted it, say, yeah, look, I've done this recently. There it is. There's your promotion, and we want to see the painted models. Everyone else wants to see painted models. And then people say, where'd you get it? Well, here's the link. Right. There you go.
Right. That's an easy way in for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, no one's going to criticize you for doing that.
Right. So criticize. That's a good kind of segue to this. When I first started posting in Heavier Metal and in other sites, I was always nervous to ask for criticism, because I felt like I wasn't good enough to give criticism to others. Like I couldn't be reciprocal. When somebody first starts out posting, do you have kind of any advice for how they should approach the search for criticism?
I think if the way I approach it, if someone puts on their post CNC welcome, then it's free reign, And I don't mean to be horrible. I just mean, that's someone who wants advice. If you don't see that, if people just want to say, hey, I painted this, you can go, oh, great, man, well done, and maybe to someone who's nervous about receiving sort of criticism, negative criticism perhaps, you don't have to put the CNC welcome on the comment on it. And just people generally, you may not get, hundreds of likes. You get some people, so you see their model and it's just amazing. He gets like 800 or 900 likes or something. But it's maybe a way that's just gradually putting in. There's one of our mods. I've never spoken to him. Triv, he's from like Scandinavia. He puts up the "Thank God It's Friday" post.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people just put anything on there. And if you've not posted up before, stick it in that thread, because it's quite a busy thread. Lots of people putting their stuff in, and it's a good way of breaking the ice, I think, just to pop it in there and see that, no, hey, you're not going to get trolled. And then maybe once you've got over that, you can maybe sort of put your own post up afterwards. There are ways of kind of gradually easing into it, if you like. But yeah, people putting up things, all the time. I'm using this in a game. And people, it's great to see that, because people expect less of a gaming model, I guess, because it's going to get knocked around the table.
Right.
So people tend to kind of go, yeah, fair enough. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure if it does.
Sure. No,
Okay, sorry.
you can gradually kind of get into getting criticism, kind of feel your way around with posts like the "Thank God It's Friday" post and stuff along those lines.
To get over posting for the first time, put it in a comment thread first, because people do see it, and then maybe move up from there.
And it's always interesting to me to see that first sign, "This is not every or metal quality," and my brain goes, everything is every metal quality. Even the stuff that you're goofing off with your 4-year-old and their 4-year-old's just painting whatever, that 4-year-old's miniature is heavy metal quality to me.
Absolutely. If you're here, then it's heavy metal quality. There's no minimum standard. And if you look at those posts when people's, here's my 4-year-olds, those get thousands of likes. People love that. They go, oh, it's better than my first model. And a lot of the time it really is. It's really quite frightening sometimes. And those pictures of the dad, they're painting with their daughter and things. That's fantastic. We love to see that. And that's that new generation coming through. Anyone who says that their painting is rubbish deserves a slap, because we've all been there. We've all been that person with the brush for the first time and it looks like someone's vomited on it. We've all been there, so cut a bit of slack.
Exactly. And so on the other side of it, though, when someone posts and asks for criticism, are there any kind of pointers on how to approach that, to give the criticism?
I think I would say, well, what if you ask for criticism? What would you want to hear? No one's here. No, I'm not expecting you to say, yeah, it's brilliant, but you say, well, have you tried this? The favourite comment is, thin your paints, which I very seldom do anyway. But there's no need to be really a negative about it. If you're just going to say, oh, don't do that, or give up on this, or chuck that one in the bin, really, is that how you would want to be spoken to? And the answer is inevitably no. So, and I think it's easy to be misinterpreted when you're sending a text or typing something, because like we're communicating now verbally. There's inflection on the words we're using. You don't get that in the written media. So, as you said earlier, it's very easy for the things to be taken out of context. But the best criticism I've seen is people saying, like, have you tried doing this? Or, that works well there, but it's not so great on this part. Try doing this, try doing that. Have you thought about doing this? Just offer it as a suggestion rather than saying, you must do this, you must do that. Because that, I've been a miniature painter for over 20 years, and I hate it when people say, you should be using a wet palette. I never use a wet palette. You must use droppers. I hate that, because I'm quite happy with the way I paint things very much, So yeah, offer it as a suggestion, I think, and then people can listen to it or not. If
Right.
you're people are concerned about about members being snowflakes. If you say you're willing to receive comments and criticism, then you got to have a bit of a thick skin about it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, no one wants anyone to be unnecessarily rude about
Right.
it.
Well, it's interesting too. I've noticed it kind of highlights cultural differences as well. And so I
Mm,
know I know a lot of Western type criticism has a tendency to be softer than maybe Eastern criticism. They're more direct to the point. And I'm perfectly great with that because I sometimes have a hard time reading social cues. So sometimes I do need to be hit over the head with a hammer. But it's interesting to see kind of how that kind of pans out. And no, there is no ill intent on the Eastern side or in different cultures. They're just blunt. They're more blunt. They're more direct and to the point, and
I
that's
think you're
awesome.
absolutely right, and it's easy to forget that. The other thing that's easy to forget is that English isn't necessarily everyone's first language,
True.
so they might
That's a
not
good point.
know how to be more subtle or to couch criticism in a supportive way, and you have to make allowances for that, I think.
That actually is a great point. That not everybody starts out with English. So that actually that's a good way of putting it for sure. So I'm interested too with there's programs that or project I don't know contests etc. and programs that y'all run through Heavier Metal. One is the Ad Banger, and I believe when we talked earlier, you said something you had over 200 entries into it this year.
Yeah, I think we might have hit around about 250.
Oh my goodness,
Um,
that's a lot of work.
it yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean the judging is the judging it does get a bit fraught. We allow 2 weeks for the judging, and sometimes even that sometimes feels like it's not enough because we've all got jobs and families. You said earlier, you're a father of three, and I've got two girls and everything and a job. So yeah, you've got to find time to sit down and look through. And no, you don't want to flick through too quickly because you sometimes miss things. So and when there's a lot of entries like that, it can take a while to go through and really see the effort people have put into it. And it's really quite humbling when you see people enter our competitions and the effort they put into it. It is really cool. We really enjoy it.
Now, are you noticing also in the Ed Banger an increase in quality of the painting too?
I think so. I think maybe perhaps as time goes on, perhaps more people are aware of the competition, and so more people enter. Perhaps this is just my thought on it, but maybe those painters who are quite established and maybe steer away from online competitions. They tend to
Mm,
prefer going to the physical ones.
right.
Maybe more of those guys are coming around to
Okay.
to entering online competitions as well. I don't know that for sure. We've never really been able to break it down like that. But it's encouraging to see more people entering because that's what we want. It's for it to, and we've tried to open up the categories to for this year we had a kind of young bloods category for the first time, and the rookie category seems to be quite popular as well.
Right.
It's quite hard to define that, but we've always wanted to try and be inclusive. And at the other end of the scale, of course, you've got the masters category, because one thing I dislike is seeing the same faces winning the same competitions over and over and over again. So we've kind of moved. If you've won at national, international level, you have the masters category.
Hmm.
Um, but then we were asked to increase the number of categories for that.
Right.
So there's more categories rather than just one. We've now got 3 for the masters. So we're trying to broaden the scope of the competition, and maybe that's why we get more competition entries as well.
Right. That's I mean, it is that is definitely a rabbit hole of looking pictures because the artwork that's put in for the headbanger is just that's worth going through the albums alone.
Oh
The stuff is
God, yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. So the other program that this is one I've gotten to participate 2 years in a row with, and I absolutely adore it, is the Secret Santa. Now, who came up with that idea?
Sorry.
Who came up with the Secret Santa idea?
Oh,
I'm
that was
kind
me. That
that was
was
you.
me.
Okay.
I think I just said it. Oh, who'd be interested one time, and a lot of people said yes. I thought, oh, okay, crikey. Um, and the first year, was a bit of a learning experience because which I assigned everybody their, they were the Santa and the person they were gifting their model to, and then because some people, moving house, they had some sort of personal problem or whatever, they didn't get around to doing the model for that person, and so some people didn't get their gifts, and that was a bit. I felt really kind of guilty about that. So in subsequent years, I just said, right, you can only enter it if you've got a model that's finished. You send me the picture of the final model, then I assign you someone to send it to.
Right.
And that's worked out a lot better. We do get problems with postage. That's a big problem, especially internationally. At that time of year, I think I'm going to have to try and do it earlier in future.
Right. I know my first one, the person I was sending mine to moved, and so I got it back. I got it back in the mail. It's okay. We got it resolved, and we got them their gift. But you can't control every factor. And there are things that happen in people's lives too. So, but I mean, I've noticed I've gotten 2 fantastic pieces from people that have been out there, and thank you for organizing that, because that's something
that my pleasure.
Build community.
And I'm really astounded with people's generosity, because I always say it's a single figure,
Right.
And I tried to say, spend a maximum of £10, which I guess is about sort of $12, $13 or €15. But what can you get for that these days? You can't get a lot. So I say, look, rummage through your bits box, see what you've got. But people, so I recommend a single figure. People sending vehicles and monsters and dreadnoughts, and someone sent a diorama. Someone sent a whole squad this year.
Right.
People just people are really generous, and it's really great to see. One guy said, "Oh, this is my Golden Demon entry from a couple of years ago. I'm going to send that."
That's awesome.
Wow. So it's a bit of a mind job trying to figure out where to send everybody, because I had a message from some guys in the Australian community saying, well, because it's so close, the painter community there isn't that big. They asked to be allowed to maybe send them further afield, so they weren't sending it to people they already knew.
Right.
So, but we've had some more people from those territories entering lately, so it's not been as much of a problem.
Oh, that's very cool. I noticed there is a pretty good Australian contingent on Every Metal too. That's kind of cool.
I think it comes down to what I said earlier about the isolation, because it's such a massive country.
It is. Yeah. But it's a massive country, and it's really far away from a lot. From kind of the hubs of painting that are out there. And so that's impressive. But I always love seeing all the data and stuff. Like Jan and I, my co-host, we're like, we've got like 20 listens in Alaska. Who in Alaska is like that's awesome. Alaska's our favorite state. Because we're just kind of surprised to see, because we can see some of the analytics and stuff along those lines. But so the last program I was going to ask you about is I know you had said you're not really that involved with the mentorship program, but I wanted to thank the Heavier Metal people for it, because I'm working with a mentor on it, and my painting is skyrocketed in like a 2.5, 3 months time period. I'm painting at a level I thought I was, but I wasn't really there. You kind of have that misunderstanding of where you are. And so now I'm starting to paint where, I don't know, where the phrases like push contrast and things along those lines actually are meaningful. And I understand what people are saying with it. So, definitely pass along to the Every Metal admins that they have people that very much appreciate those type of things.
I will pass it on. It's not something I've really had much involvement in. Lucas, I think, really pushed for that in the earlier days. I think he's much more involved in making that happen. So I didn't know there was much mentorship at all going on. So I'm going to have to kind of look a little more deeply into it. But no, it's certainly good to hear that. Thank you very much.
No, it's my pleasure. And so the motto of our podcast is better, braver, happier. And so any advice out there for people who would listen about just how to continue on that path to be better, braver, and happier painters?
Oh, crikey. I think um, the thing, I mean, you touched on it earlier. People say, oh, this isn't of heavy metal standard, or is nowhere near as good as the people who are painting on here. I think you paint that to please yourself, whether that's for display or for gaming or as a gift for someone. I think it's really easy to look on heavy metal and see someone else is painting is better than yours and to get despondent about it. But I think if you're painting for your own enjoyment, then that's got to be the fundamental, most important thing, isn't it? For you to enjoy doing it. So that's where I'd say, look, just paint for fun, enjoy it, and then mate, if you really want to get better, if you're hit some stumbling block or you're not able to achieve something you want to, I think there's always someone out there who'll be willing to help. People sort of suggestions. If you say, look, how do people do this, or is there a tutorial you can point me out, direct me to? You see that a lot as well, like non-metallic metallics. How do I get started? Well, people post up a link, try this guy's Patreon, this is on YouTube. But I think if you're not enjoying it, and we do see some members who are kind of like, oh, I'm not, this isn't working for me. I'm not enjoying it. Well, ease back. You're putting pressure on yourself, and if you're not enjoying it, then do something else for a while and come back to it later. Because if you're not having fun, what's the point?
I think people forget the word hobby sometimes.
Yeah.
That they what they're doing as soon as a hobby. So, man, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. So, I mean, it really has been awesome. It's always nice to be able to have conversations with people that do things like give back to the community, like being an admin on a massive site, which is such an I'm sure it's a thankless job, but do know that there are people that appreciate you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. No, people are generous with their praises. It is quite good. We do enjoy it. Thank you. But no, it's been great to talk to yourself, and this kind of thing. When else am I going to talk about painting in an academic sense with someone in Washington?
Right,
if
right.
Technology didn't allow it. This is amazing, isn't it?
It is wonderful.
I hope long may it continue.
Dan and I would like to thank Dave Taylor from Heavier Metal for joining us. And again, join the Facebook group at Heavier Metal. You're going to have to answer some questions because it's not a heavy metal rock site, but you know what? There's a lot of heavy metal rockers that are on the site with the quality of paint jobs that are out there.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and put this to a close. It is super late, and we've all stayed up and watched the news and painted and all that kind of crap. Now it's time to rest a little bit before tomorrow's exciting news, or whatever that happens to be. Our next episode, we're hoping to have a talk about brushes. Not necessarily how to use them, but kind of like what some of our favorites are and some of our experiences that we've had with them.
So in this horrible time of the COVID-19 virus going out there, it actually is an excellent opportunity to become better, braver, and happier. Pick up the brush, pick up an airbrush, get on social media, interact with people safely. Until next time.
Be safe out there, everybody. See ya.
Listening to Paint Dry with Mike and Dan is a production of LTPTWMD. All rights reserved. No portion of this recording may be used without the express written consent of the host. The music is Death by a Thousand Questions by Springtide. Download from the Free Music Archive on a non-commercial attribution share-alike basis. All views and opinions expressed in the show are solely the views and opinions of the person who said them. All celebrity voices, if any, were impersonated and done so poorly.